So welcome to today's episode of Bully Beta, where today I'm covering the beta of Stronghold Assault. Now, as far as I'm aware, there are at least two versions of Stronghold Assault that exist in the game's files. One that is actually playable, and the other that consists of loads of unused audio files. So let's start off with the beta version that is actually playable. On the PC version of Bully, inside scripts.img, there is a beta version of Stronghold Assault here, and it's called test_4_02. And this can be played by replacing arcrace1.lur and going to the arcade machine in the Boys Storm. Now, this might be the earliest version of Stronghold Assault and shows a large amount of differences here compared to the final version. The objective here is still the same, which is to reach the observatory and break in, but there's still a load of differences we see here. So what differences do we actually see in this beta version? First of all, the mission starts Jimmy off behind the library as opposed to outside of it. The first two objectives with Fatty and Fad are completely skipped. There's also no introduction cutscene here either. Now, this could imply that the whole cutscene was different. Maybe instead of Algernon not letting Pete be a nerd, it could mean that the cutscene may have been a confrontation between Jimmy and the nerds. Jimmy is armed with a regular slingshot. Now, this is interesting as it could imply that Jimmy is going to keep the regular slingshot as opposed to losing it after the candidate. Or maybe the super slingshot was going to be obtained later on, or it could even mean that the super slingshot was going to be an ammo-based weapon. There is no mission-specific music, quotes, or objectives, like we don't hear Earnest over an intercom taunting us. Some of the nerds are positioned differently, like here we can see Fad is behind the first barricade, but he isn't there in the final game. The nerds' positions actually appear on the radar, much like the prefects do. This doesn't happen in the final version of the game. The nerds in this mission actually use spud guns as opposed to bottle rocket launchers. This was most likely changed due to the accuracy of the spud gun combined with the damage, which would make the mission much more difficult to complete, as Jimmy can withstand about 4 or 5 hits before he gets knocked out. Now, strangely, Earnest and the fatter nerds, which are Algernon, Fatty and Melvin, seemingly don't appear in this mission, which is odd since Earnest, Fatty, Melvin and Algernon were some of the earliest designed characters in Bully, going all the way back to the Tyler Wilson concept. It makes it even weirder as this mission is strongly centred around Earnest. When we reach the observatory, we get this small cutscene, which is very similar to the one we see in the final game, but here we can see Fad has replaced Earnest's role on the spud cannon, but once again there's no quotes or anything like this. Now also, Fad doesn't actually use the spud cannon, he just sort of stands there, so you could run up to him or knock him out if you really wanted to. And don't worry, none of these give you a mission failed either. Now, once you've destroyed the transformer, the gates will open and Fad will actually attack you. In the final game, Earnest just runs inside. He doesn't stop to attack Jimmy. Now, when you actually get to the spud cannon, you can't actually use it. It won't let you. Now, when you actually get to this objective, which is to knock the doors down, it seems borderline impossible to do as you can't actually get on top of the spud cannon. However, in this beta version of the game, you could easily kick down the door with your weapons. So that means you could shoot it with your slingshot, firecrackers and all that. However, in the final game, the door is completely immune to these weapons and can only be damaged by the spud cannon, sorry. After Jimmy destroys the door, rather than it being a small in-game cutscene of Jimmy entering the observatory, the player has to do it themselves. However, this is near impossible to do, because, well, the mission objective is actually positioned over the ground that has no collision, and that will knock Jimmy out instantly. However, if we use the no gravity feature of the super mod, we can complete the mission. And no, it doesn't actually start Earnest beta fight or anything, it just ends here. We don't get any reward, we don't lose any respect. Now time to cover the second version of Stronghold Assault, which we only know of thanks to the unused audio files. Now, before we analyse the deleted audio files for Stronghold Assault, I'd like to show off this image again from the Brady Games strategy guide, which I showcased in my last beta screenshots video. So for this part, I'm just going to replay my analysis from that video for this part. According to this image, which I believe is one of the more interesting beta screenshots that are in this guide, it claims that the pathway to the observatory in Stronghold Assault, there was actually going to be a lake, if that makes sense. Like, if we look at the minimap here and compare it to the one in the final game, we can clearly see that something was going to be here, and I believe it may have been a lake. But as we can also tell in this image, the minimap is off, since it puts the player in the middle of this lake, but we can see there is no water here. So this makes me think that maybe, in the beta, the player may have had to actually swim across this lake or watch where they tread on the other side. And if we look at the map very up close, we can see a brown spot. Note how it actually appears to cover the lake just a little bit. so I wonder if this may have been a sniper's nest or a blockade forcing the player to either swim or take the other path. Now for some strange reason, Stronghold Assault is actually listed as the second mission of Chapter 4, with Paparazzi being the first mission and Defender of the Castle being the third mission. Well, fourth if you actually count Ernest's boss fight as a mission. This could imply a minor story change with Ernest turning on Jimmy due to the jock attack caused by Paparazzi, as opposed to Ernest turning on Jimmy for no reason. So now let's analyse the audio files for Stronghold Assault.
Hey losers! Mind telling me where your fearless leader is?
I'm afraid your diplomacy skill is too low. We won't tell you.
Fine by me. My ass-kicking skills will have to do.
Okay. I think he's over by the front of the school.
You win, Jimmy! I think he's by the front of the school. What's up, nerdlings? Where's Ernest?
He was just here, but is now on a most important quest.
Whatever. Just tell me where he is.
Never! For the guild! Ow! Okay, he's on his way to the observatory.
The observatory! He went to the observatory!
He's at the observatory, but don't tell him I told you.
Now these audio files imply Jimmy was supposed to ask Bucky, Cornelius and Fatty about Ernest, as opposed to just asking Fatty. It makes sense when you realise that the objective in the final version of the game is to ask the nerds about Ernest's whereabouts, not ask a nerd. And going off Cornelius' quote about Ernest being in front of the school, this could imply that this mission might have been a setup kind of mission. Like going off my theory about Chapter 4 having a slightly different storyline, it makes sense for Cornelius to stall Jimmy while the nerds prepare their attack on him.
Forget it, Hopkins! You're not getting in without the key code! Then you better tell me what it is! Never! As you wish!
Okay, it's 1138.
Wuss!
Only the first quote of this is actually used in the final game. This could mean that when Jimmy saw Thad guarding the door, it might be in one of those small in-game cutscenes, as opposed to Thad just pointing at Jimmy, then getting the shit kicked out of him.
You're in my domain now, Jimmy! Prepare to suffer!
Oh, this is gonna be just great.
How do you like it so far, James? This is only the beginning. Your aggro management won't save you, Hopkins! Are you still trying, Jimmy? You are bloody-minded, I have to give you that. Give up, Jimmy, you'll never make it! You're outmatched on all fronts! Well, other than Braun.
Man, what a wank. That guy is seriously unhinged. Did he get hit on the head too many times or something? I'm gonna enjoy kicking his ass. Looks like it's another episode of When Nerds Attack. They're actually attacking me? Too funny. Uh-oh, nerds on the rampage.
Now judging from these, Jimmy would actually react to Ernest taunting him over the intercom.
Alert! Barbarians at the gate!
Awake! Awake! We're under attack!
Get out of here, Jimmy! What are you even doing here, Jimmy? Can't we just play Grottos and Gremlins?
Leave now, Jimmy, and spare yourself! It's our brains against your brawn and we'll win! You can't beat all of us!
Go away, Jimmy! We don't like you! Leave us alone, bully!
Fall back!
Pull back! There's too many of them!
Now these quotes could mean that Jimmy had to fight all of the nerds as opposed to making his way down the path. That's my interpretation of it anyway, although I highly doubt that, as the beta version that we covered earlier in the video actually had the same concept as the final game.
Get him before he damages the Transformer! The Transformer is damaging the gate open, you dunces! Fall back!
I just got hit by a potato?
I invented that! You like spuds?
Defend the Spud Cannon! Don't let him turn it on the door! Don't let him get the Spud Cannon! It is the key to our defenses! He can try, but he won't break down the door!
Ernest, the air compressor is malfunctioning!
It's not an air compressor, you dolt! Don't you know anything?
Now I get to use your weapon! How do you like that, nerd?
Now judging from these audio files, it could mean that the nerds might have assisted Ernest when he was shooting at Jimmy. Although I think it's possible that in the beta the transformer was used to keep the gate locked, while the spud cannon wasn't affected by it. It possibly may have been controlled by Bucky instead, going off his quotes about it malfunctioning, and Ernest talking to him over the intercom. Now here's some bully trivia for you. Bucky actually invented the spud gun, not Ernest.
Crap! Lock! I wonder if this could smash the door. Your door is gone, Ernest! Now I'm coming for you!
These quotes are self-explanatory. The final few quotes of the mission. Strangely, Jimmy's quotes for the mission, where he greets Ernest, Thad and Cornelius and all that, are actually listed at the very bottom of the audio files.
Hey guys, I need to know where Ernest is. Hey, can you tell me where Ernest is? Where's Ernest? You better tell me where Ernest is. Hey Thad, Can you let me through? All right, nerd! Open the door! Now!
Now, to me, these quotes make the mission a lot more interesting in my opinion, as there's a lot more character interaction between Jimmy and the nerds as opposed to it being a generic run and gun like in the final game. Now, onto the Earnest boss fight, which also has some cut content. Let's start off with the 2 deleted cutscenes that we're going to play after each phase of Earnest's boss fight. I believe these were removed due to how short the boss fight can be, and it doesn't really add anything to the fight either. However, just to quickly step away from the Stronghold Assault and go into all the bosses in Bully as a whole, but it seems most of the bosses in Bully were actually going to have mid-fight cutscenes. For example, if you lose the fight to Russell, you'll get a short cutscene. Now this scene was actually going to be played halfway through Russell's fight. Johnny Vincent's fight had a deleted scene, with Jimmy knocking Johnny off his bike. Ernest had these 2 cutscenes which were just played, and Edgar also had a deleted cutscene which was played during the second phase of his boss fight. Now, one minor complaint I've seen from players is how Earnest's fight doesn't actually have a proper boss theme, instead it just reuses the Nerds theme. I'll say right now, lower your expectations, but in the game's files there's actually an audio track called ms_nerd boss battle, but it still plays the original Nerds theme. To me, this actually implies that Earnest was going to have a dedicated boss theme, but is either scrapped or unfinished by the time Buddy was due for shipping. Now sadly, I didn't find any unused quotes for the boss fight, but I'll play them anyway.
You'll never take me alive! Never, you hear? Never! Your brawn is no match for my superior technology! This is just a prototype! Soon we'll all have one! Watch out! Flying potatoes! Can you even spell potato, Jimmy? Oh, you'll like this, Jimmy. This is for you, Jimmy. Got a present for you. You'll like this. You guys treat us nerds like dirt. One day you'll regret it. Yeah, I have chicken legs. So what? Huh? One day I'll be rich, and you'll be sorry. You think it's funny now, but one day I'll invent a better nuclear bomb. Then you'll be sorry. Why do you have to be such a bully, Jimmy? Why? Can't we all just get along? No, we can't because you're a bastard. No one appreciates an intelligent personality around here. No one. It isn't fair.
So that's all for today's episode of Buddy Beta. I hope you enjoyed and thank you for watching.